Hello everyone, welcome to Unit 2, Day 17. Today's topic is going to be finding slope. A little bit more advanced version of finding that slope though, because we're going to be looking at finding slope with very minimal information and then using that slope to find the equation of a line. Also just given 2 points, right? So those are the only clues we're going to be given. It's just 2 points that exist on the line and using that information to help us write the equation for that line. Okay. So sometimes as scientists or engineers, we have to work with very minimal data, right? We're not given a whole lot of information about the scenario. Sometimes all we know is just 2 points that exist on a particular line, and our job is to come up with the equation, a table, a graph, and actually put all the pieces together that we need so that we can make predictions and use that line to our advantage. All right, so we're going to see how this is done. So our mission here is to find my line. Okay, so we have a line and all we know are these 2 points that they give us here. That's all we know. So I'm going to start, right, and I have my representations down here. I have my table, I have my graph, and I've got a place down here to start building my equation. So we're gonna start with the graph. All right, so we can start building our first representation here, and I'm going to take this point that they give me, the -2, -4, and I'm going to plot it. All right, so I'm going to come down here. Since the point's at -2, -4, I'm going to go left 2, and then I'm going to go down 4, and I'm going to plot a point. There we go. All right, so I got my point plotted, and then the second point that they gave me, let me scroll back up just a little bit, was at 2, -2, so it means I'm going to go right 2, down 2, and there is my second point. Okay, and then I'm going to draw my line through those 2 points, right? Because really all we need to draw a line just 2 points. So we have our direction and everything, so I just got to be careful with drawing my line precisely here. So I'm going to do it the best I can here. There we go. So there we go. We can see my line going through those 2 points. And then I'm going to start working on my table. All right, so I notice, hey, I've got -2, -4 here. Well, that gives me an x and a y value combined, right? So I have a -2. It tells me when I put a -2 in, I'm going to get a -4 out. So I'm going to come over here to my table. I find the input of -2, which means I'm going to get an output of -4. So it's a part of my table that I can fill in. And then this one is at 2, -2. So I find the input 2, and then I can put a -2 here. Okay, and then I can get more clues for my table from my graph here. So for instance, let me switch colors here, and let's go, I don't know, let's go with green. And I'm looking at my table, and I'm gonna find my slope. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and start finding that. And I remember that slope is rise over run. Okay, so if I gotta go from this point to this point, I have to go up, and then I have to go over. Right, so I'm going up and I'm going to the right, and I went up 1, 2, so that gives me a rise of 2, and I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, so it gives me a run of 4. Okay. Another important point that I can see here is on the y-intercept, right? So this is where the line crosses the y-axis, and that is the point 0, 3. So that gives me another point that I can fill in on my table over here, which is important. And you can just start to see that as you look at this closer, having 2 points actually gives you a lot of information. Okay, so we've already got a slope, we've got a graph, we've got the y-intercept, and we're kind of finding this stuff by just starting somewhere, right? Start somewhere, graph a line. The graph can tell you a lot of stuff. So let's see if we can see what's going on over here. Oh, and this should be 0, -3, and let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. So it looks like it's going up by 1s, right? So if I'm noticing the pattern here going from -4 to -3, it went up 1 and then it went up another 1. So this one's going to be -1, and then this one would be 0, and I can see that point right here, right? 6, 0, and there it is on the graph. So now we have a complete table over here, we have a complete graph, and I'm ready to start trying to build my equation. Okay. So remember, we already found the slope. We said the slope was 2 over 4, which you could reduce to be 1 over 2. All right, so either one of those would be fine. This is just a reduced version of this fraction. Okay, the y-intercept we marked here in green, so that's going to be at 0, 3. And the reason that I want those two pieces of information is because I know every line takes the form y equals mx plus b. Okay, and so to write our equation, we need the slope and we need the y-intercept, which we conveniently have over here. So I'm going to go ahead and write my equation. I've got y equals, and the first thing they want is the slope, so I'm going to put in 1/2 and then x, right? So 1/2 x plus b. Now remember, b is found in the y-intercept. It is the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, so this 3 represents our b value. So I'm going to put in a, and I keep forgetting the negative on that. It's a big mistake right there, right? So it's going to be plus -3, which is just minus 3. So now we have an equation for our line as well. So we have built all 3 representations using just 2 points that were given to us. Okay? All right. Now let's look at a really easy scenario where we do just that. All right, so turning it into a scenario is not too hard. We just got to apply a little context to it. All right, so Michael is running a race to find out how fast they can run. 2 points that represent their graph are 0, 2, and 3, 14. Okay, so it looks like in this scenario, if I'm looking at the graph that they provided me here, it looks like the x variable is representing time in seconds, and the y variable is representing feet, right, or distance in feet. Right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. Okay, and they give us 2 points. So I'm going to start this off the same way that I did that last problem. I'm going to start by trying to build the graph, right? So I'm going to plot this point 0, 2. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and here's 0. They didn't mark it with a 0, but we have a 0 there now. So there's 0, and then I go up 2, and I plot a point, right? So there's the first point on Michael's race, and let's see, it gives another point 3, 14. So I'm going to go over, so I'm going to go to the right 3, and then I'm going to go up to 14. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to draw a line through those 2 points, right? We only need 2 points to define a line. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to try and draw a line through those points the best that I can. It is not easy with this pen, guys, let me tell you. Oh, I think we might have got it, and that looks pretty decent. There we go. So there's my line, right? And now I have a graph that I can work with, right? So the next thing, if I'm looking at every component of this problem, I don't see a table that I have to fill in, which is fine, but if you wanted to, you could, right? Because you could take those 2 points and easily drop them into a table. But the next thing that they want is the slope, the y-intercept, and eventually the equation, right? So to find the equation, you have to find these 2 things anyways. You have to find the slope and the y-intercept, and we should be able to do that pretty easily once we have a graph. Okay, so that's what I'm going to work on next, is just finding the slope. And so to find the slope, right, if I only had 2 points, is I would look at the graph and I would find the rise and the run. I draw in that slope triangle, right, that represents travel from one point to the other. Okay, so I'm trying to get from this point to this point, but when I draw my slope triangle, I can only go left or right, and I can only go up or down. I can't go diagonal. Okay, so if I go from this point to this point, I'm going to go right, and I'm going to go up. Okay, so I went right 1, 2, 3, and I went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so this represents my rise. So this is my rise, and this number down here represents my run. That's my left and right movement. Okay, so if I'm writing my slope, it's going to be rise over run, so it's going to be 12 over 3, and for those of you who can divide stuff, 12 over 3 is 4, right? Or if you want to keep it as a fraction, you can say 4 over 1, right? That way we can see rise and run, just in a simplified state, right? This is just a simplified or a reduced version of the slope. Okay, they're both the same number, but one's just reduced. All right, the y-intercept, where does our purple line cross over the y-axis, right? So this is the y-axis right here, and we can see it hit the y-axis at this point. So one of the points that they gave us was, in fact, the y-intercept, and that's going to be at 0, 2. That's this point right here. Okay, so I'm going to go write that down. So I got 0, 2, and remember our b value is that 2, right? It's the 2 inside of the y-intercept. So now I'm going to write my equation. I'm going to say y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to fill in my slope, and I'm going to fill in the b value. Okay, so my slope was 4, right? So I have 4x. And then my b value was a positive 2, so I'm going to say plus 2. There's my equation. Okay, so again, just from 2 points, knowing 2 points of Michael's race, I was able to construct a line. I was able to find the slope, I was able to find the y-intercept, and use that to build my equation. And now I want to answer this question, right? It says, using your equation, when would Michael reach a distance of 30 feet? Okay, so distance, remember, is represented by y, so that means this 30 can be substituted in for the y value. So instead of putting a y here, I can put a 30 and say 30 equals 4x plus 2. And this becomes a simple equation that we can solve. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line, and my mission is to figure out what x is, right? The amount of time. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. All right, whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. So the 2's will cancel over here, and 30 minus 2 is 28. So there we go. So we got 28 equals 4x. And then since it's multiplication over here, I have to undo multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 4, right, because it's being multiplied by 4. So whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. All right, 28 divided by 4 is 7, and the 4's over here cancel, leaving us with just x. Okay, so the question is, when would Michael reach a distance of 30 feet? We would say in 7 seconds. It would take him 7 seconds to go 30 feet. So we'd go right 7, and then up to 30 on our graph, we would see that point on our line. All right, guys, that's it for today's lesson. Give the practice problems a try. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.